so happy to have our guest soloist, a young lady that I've known for a long, long time, from Denver. Although I think you were born in another town. So tell us a little bit about your early, your beginning in Denver, and first your birthplace, and if you don't mind telling us how old you are, tell us when you were born.
Okay.
And we'll figure out how old you are.
Okay. Well, I was originally born in Denver, but I grew up in Aurora, Colorado.
Okay, that's close to Denver.
Yeah, very close. It's a suburb of Denver, and I'm the middle child of my parents, Fred and Elthopia Fuller, who are retired educators in the Denver Public School District, and also musicians. Who my mom sings, my dad plays bass, and they started a band called the Fuller Sound when I was little. Actually, my sister and I, this was before my younger brother was born, but we used to be outside playing kickball, and they'd be, on Saturdays, they'd be rehearsing for gigs, or we'd be going to a gig with them. And so I'm really thankful for that, just that foundation, because even when I really didn't like jazz, and I remember my dad would always be piping it through the house, just like he had speakers on top level, speakers on the bottom, and then in the basement. So we couldn't really get away from it. Then when we got in the car, I tried to turn it to the local R&B station, and he would be like, "Don't you touch that dial unless you pay in this card." So I was indirectly taking everything in, even when I didn't want to. And one thing about my parents, though, is they never forced us to play. The only thing that my mom had said is that I had to play piano until I was 12, just because she wanted me to have the foundation. And so I studied classical piano from age 3 to about 12, and then I picked up the saxophone around 10 or 11, and then it was kind of history. It was a slow history, though, with the saxophone.
When did I first hear you? How old were you when I first? This was in the 85, 86,
yeah,
1986.
I think, did you do Telluride?
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I hadn't even picked up a saxophone yet. I was trying to play piano.
Okay.
And I got so discouraged because I was listening to Shami, my sister, and I remember being up there, and the teacher brought in, I will never forget this, they brought in Scrapple from the Apple. And I looked at that tune, and it just looked like hieroglyphics. As a piano player, I saw the chorus, and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. So that week was a little challenging. I think I was about 11.
Okay, that's
10
a
or
great
11,
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's tough to put on an early beginner. I mean, a piano.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
I felt that. And plus, I was very I was not prepared. I was not ready. I did not have the skill set.
Right. That was pretty unfair to put that on.
Exactly.
I've heard Branford tell the story about the Marcellus family. Their family, the father and sisters, that they, were rigid about jazz and the like. And as soon as he left the house, they get on the R&B thing going.
Exactly. That was me. I never heard that story from Branford, but that was definitely me up until I was about 12 or 13, and I got to the saxophone, and I was like, okay, I can actually hear my voice, some sort of a voice. But I remember playing that low B flat, and it just reverberated through the house. And I was like, this is it.
Did you play anything other than alto?
Yeah, I started with flute when I was 9.
Okay.
After piano, I went to flute when I was 9, and that was beautiful. I still played some flute as well, but there was something about the power and the energy behind the saxophone that I was able to get that I could not get in the flute. Maybe because half the air was escaping. Right. But I like the umph behind it, and it's funny because my dad even says, he's like, T, you've always had a big sound. You've always, and I don't know if growing up in Colorado contributes to that with the altitude.
With the altitude, sure.
And he used to yell at me on the bandstand, like, Tia, play, when we used to do gigs.
Right.
So.
Well, did you play in his school band? And did did he teach you in public school?
No, well, actually, both of my parents, my dad taught PE,
Mm-hmm.
and then he retired as an assistant principal in middle school, and then my mother taught English and drama, and she retired as an assistant principal as well. So neither one of them taught music in the school system. So my training was hearing them. It was more like a subconscious training of hearing them, and then being on the bandstand. Once I think I played my first gig at the Rock Bottom Brewery. You remember that brewery?
Yeah, sure did. And you could buy the beer on tap. And,
exactly. And you had to climb up that stage. It was like a real narrow ladder to get on the stage. My mom used to complain about that stage.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember
They're trying to kill me.
Well, when you left Denver, where did you go after? Where did you go to college after you finished high school?
Yeah, so I went to Spelman College, and I remember.
How did you speak Spelman?
Well, yeah. So I remember we still have a TV in our kitchen, and I remember looking up and seeing A Different World. We'd always watch Cosby Show, and then A Different World would come on after that. I think it came on Tuesday night.
Was that at Spelman?
Yeah.
It was filmed at Spelman, right?
Yeah, it was filmed at Spelman, and the name in A Different World was Hillman. So they had changed the name, but it was all on the campus. So I remember looking up one night after eating dinner, and I was like, I want to go to a historically black college. I want to go to Spelman, because it just looked like so much fun.
Yeah.
And then
where'd your parents go? What college did they go to?
They went to University of Northern Colorado for undergrad, and then grad school at DU.
Okay. So they didn't go to the historical black.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I wanted to branch out, but that was my motivation. I think watching that show and just seeing, I was like, I want to be around some other sisters who do great things. Then I went out there and met Mr. Jennings, who was my teacher out there.
I want you to tell me a little bit about him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was Perspective Freshman Week or Student Week, and I went out there, and I was actually thinking about coming here to Howard.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I think so.
I think
so.
Do you remember that, man?
Yeah, I think so.
And I was kind of teeter-tottering between the two, because I knew the music program here was really on point. I had heard so many great things, but I didn't really know anything about the music program at Spelman. So when I went out there, I met Mr. J, and walked into his office, and he had on this John Coltrane hat. And he was like, all right, how you doing? I was like, I'm fine. And we talked a little bit, then he said, play something for me. And at the time, I had learned the melody of Donna Lee. So I played through I didn't solo over it. But I played, and then after I played the melody, he looked at me and he was like, you got potential. And I don't know if I had that much potential.
No, I think so. That melody is enough to kind of get an idea of what's going on. Did he play along with you? Or
he didn't. Not that first time. But then after that, I felt a certain connection to him. Right. And I knew that if I went to Spelman, I would have the black college experience that I wanted, that I desired. And then I would have a certain... I felt like I was behind, and I felt like he was going to give me the type of just focused attention that I needed. And that's what exactly happened. I decided to go to Spelman, and I was still kind of teetering on transferring my first semester, transferring here, because I just didn't like, I didn't see other musicians doing what I was doing. Right. So I was like one of the only graduates who actually pursued to be a jazz musician. I was probably, in my class, it was myself and another vocalist. It was only two of us. No kid, but you all made a big name for that school, just the two of you. Oh, well, yeah, well, one thing about it is Mr. Jennings, he started the Spelman Jazz Ensemble. Right. And that was something that really gave us something to look forward to. Every spring break, we would go on tour. And it would be like an East Coast tour. We'd hit the Schaumburg, it was so fun, and it was the first time that I had actually been on a quote-unquote tour with the band. But that was a labor of love for him, because he wasn't getting a lot of support. I think he got the most amount of support when Janetta Cole was the president. And so it was at that point that he was able to really sustain the program. And I don't know how he did it, but he would get students who were, some students that were biology majors, psychology majors, of course. But then, and no matter what the instrumentation was, he would make it work. Usually it was like 7 vocalists because they had the choir.
Yeah, sure.
The glee club. So he'd get a couple people from the glee club, and then whatever instrumentalist trickled in the ensemble.
Okay.
And I remember when I was in there my first year, there was 1 trumpet player, alto, or 2 altos, a tenor, and I think that's it.
And he arranged for that group.
Yes, he would arrange every year for that group, and made it work, and people loved it, and that was like the piece, the visible piece for Spelman,
right,
that a lot of people would attach.
Now you're 4 years there. Did you see beyond that 4 years doing something else? With the fact that you were not in a really fast advanced environment. Did you see something after that?
Definitely. So when I was there, because I knew I wasn't at like a conservatory where all of my friends had gone, and I was really trying to recreate that type of vibe, a conservatory vibe, in the midst of being at Spelman. So I knew that in order for me, because my big picture at that point was I want to move to New York and start my own band. I want to play. I want to play. But I knew that the school didn't necessarily have those different opportunities that other schools did. So I tried to create them outside by going and sitting in at the Yin Yang Cafe, which is a club, or Churchill Grounds. Right. And that's where I met some of my friends, Kebby Williams. I was
going to ask you about them. Yeah, we had several students from Howard lived in Atlanta.
Yeah, Kebby. And
William Smith, I think, was there for a while. He may have graduated, but saxophone player.
I remember meeting him.
Yeah,
when I was younger.
He lived there for a while. But still, you had to, it was a little bit, not quite as fast as D.C. and New York, but you did quite well.
Thank you. Well, I had good inspiration, early inspiration, seeing you. I remember sitting in the audience at Mile High Jazz Camp from the time I was 10 or 11 and seeing, I always wanted to hear Art Dawkins. Always. I was like, he's bad. And then every time you get up there, people be like, woo, woo. And it was so exciting for me. So thank you. I don't know if I ever got a chance to say that, but you've definitely been instrumental in just like being able to set what it looked like to play, to really play.
Well, in Denver, you didn't have black musicians. There was not a whole number of them players, were they?
There was. So I was fortunate because the bands that my parents, the musicians that they played with in Fuller Sound in their band, the majority of them were black. Okay. But there were a couple, like Eric Gunnison, great piano player. Yes. And there was a bass player
that played with the camp for a while.
Who is that?
Big Cat.
Yeah, big guy.
Oh, yeah. Kenny Walker.
Kenny Walker, yeah.
Kenny Walker.
Great bass player.
Joe Bonner. And just growing up seeing Tony Black on drums.
Absolutely.
Tony Klatka. I mean, there were a lot of musicians that I was privy to through my parents, and seeing that this is a family.
Right,
this music is an extension of your family.
Sure, but you sure got a lot out of some of that kind of limited experiences. Now, when you left, Atlanta, did you go back to Denver, or did you go straight to New York after? Well, you went to school back in Denver.
Yeah,
you got your master's, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it was my goal upon graduating from Spelman to move straight to New York. But then Greg Carroll, he was the director of jazz of the University of Boulder, Colorado Boulder. He was like, I could get you a full scholarship to come and get your master's. And I remember specifically where I was right in the corridor of our house. And my mom said, Tia, you better get that free math paper. You better go, because we're paying for Spelman, so you better go get that math. So I ended up taking it was a little bit of a detour in my brain, but I'm so happy I did it. I went back to Colorado, and I was the first graduate of the Jazz Pedagogy and Performance degree, the Masters of Jazz Pedagogy and Performance degree at University of Colorado at Boulder.
Who was in charge of that program? Who was Greg Carroll?
Yeah, so Greg Carroll was, but then when he brought me in, he had left.
Okay.
I think he was teaching or directing IAJE. He was doing something. So John Davis came in shortly after. There was an interim person, Michael. His last name's escaping me. But John Davis was there.
Okay.
Up until I think about a couple of years ago.
Did that do a lot for preparation for your job at Berkeley? Is that the only place you had some official structured coursework? Did that have anything to do with Berkeley?
You know what? At the time, I had no idea.
Right.
But it's funny because once I got that Berkeley gig, I was accessing everything that I learned at the University of Colorado Boulder.
Okay.
Like the pedagogy and especially directing a big band.
Okay.
Because John Davis was extraordinary about paying attention to minutia and how to work with different sections, and, you know, especially talking to the drummer, figuring out how the drummer communicates with the band and sets things up. And it was ironic because even though I graduated from Colorado, University of Colorado in 2000, I started teaching 2013. But it was like clockwork where as soon as I got in front of my big band, I was like, oh shoot, let me go back to this, this arsenal of information that I got back at school. And I was so thankful because at the time I didn't know that what I was preparing for and how it was going to evolve. But it made it was like a completed circle at that point once I started teaching.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this is why. And then I had reinforcement being on the scene out in New York and playing with like John Faddis.
Yeah.
Duke Ellington Orchestra every Tuesday night at Birdland, or Count Basie Orchestra with like Frank West, sitting in the section.
Did you play with those bands? Did you play?
Yeah, so I did. I wasn't consistent, but I would sub with the Duke Ellington, and then I did a couple gigs with the Count Basie Orchestra, Charlie Persip Orchestra, and that was, of course, a wealth of information that kind of all came together once I started teaching.
Right. I saw where you were on that band that Nancy Wilson did with all these. Recording.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Turn to Blue.
Yeah.
It was at Manchester.
Tell me about that.
That that kind of came out of nowhere. One of my good friends, Sean Jones. He was teaching at Duquesne at that point. Okay. And so an opportunity came for me to play in that section on that album, and I was just excited to meet Nancy Wilson.
Everybody was on that. Oh boy!
That was a fun session, and it was just like one take. And I remember when she walked in the room, it was just like regalness, like here's the queen. And from that point, when we recorded, it was. I don't know, the experience. It was seamless. Yeah. And it was really, really beautiful. Man, I forgot all about that until you did that. That album is like one of my favorite albums. Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody's on that album. All the cats are on that album. But so after that, where did you go? From the early 2000s to now. Did you go? You had your own group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I moved to New York, it was 2001. It was actually September 9th, 2001. Okay. 2 days before the World Trade Center collapsed. Oh. So, and that was my welcome to New York. And I had been planning for this moment the whole, all throughout Spelman. I was like, I'm moving to New York. I'm moving to New York. I get there and everything just goes to shambles. All of my friends were saying there's no work. All the clubs are shutting down. And I think God was really on my side because I was, within 2 weeks of moving there, I landed my first gig. Okay. And that first gig was a fish fry. It was in the basement of this church in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It was the most soulful gig. And it was with this big band. But as a result of doing that gig, I remember somebody in that band, his name is Anthony, what's his last name? Tenor saxophonist, Brown. Oh, Lord, Anthony, please, if you're watching this. But, and he was like, well, you want to play this, it's like a R&B gig. It's every Tuesday night. It's live at Instant Coffee. It was like a deaf poetry jam.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah. That was $75 every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then from that, I started playing in a church. I met somebody who was like, you want to play at church? So Sundays, that was another $85 every week.
Wow.
And then, meanwhile, I was writing and I was sitting in trying to be visible on the scene out in New York. And then I was hustling and booking gigs. And so from early 2000s up until 2006, I was playing with my band. I started playing with Ralph Peterson, T.S. Monk Septet, Rufus Reed, and of course Sean Jones and some other folks. And then from that point, 2006, I auditioned for the Beyonce band and made that. But it was at that point where I had landed a record deal with Mac Avenue Records.
Yeah, I like that company. That's a great company.
Yeah, it's like a family there.
Yeah. Let's go back to the World Trade Center, if you don't mind. Just that must have been, I mean, all over the country. It was like we were there when it happened.
Yeah.
But that must have been a pretty big shock for a young lady, too. Did you know anybody else in D.C., in New York at the time?
I did. Thank God Javon Jackson lived about 15 minutes away from me. And he's like a big brother. He and Brad Lely, who are both from Colorado.
Yes.
And Brad lived in Brooklyn. I was living in New Jersey. So I called Javon and his wife. Or I actually called my mom. I was like, Mom, I don't know the World Trade. I don't know if this is an omen that I'm supposed to, or not supposed to be here. And she said, pray about it. And then Javon opened up his house to me for, I think it was like 5 days or that whole week. Wow. And so I stayed over there with he and his wife and his kids. Yeah. And just hung. And then I was able to really kind of grab my bearings. And from that point, I felt that it was meant for me to stay in New York and to make it happen for myself.
And you probably couldn't get that much strength from anything else. Unfortunately, it had to be a very treacherous situation. Yeah. But that's as you said, it's a really bad experience for your second day in
Exactly. Well, that was the thing is I didn't know how it was before me getting there. Yeah. So when everybody was saying there's no work or the clubs are, I just knew I had to hustle based off of what I heard. Right. So, but I didn't know what. So I was having to function in this mindset of being proactive and creating opportunities constantly because I knew that whatever was there before might have been gone. Yeah. But I was just functioning in this. I don't want to say desperation, but it was just like I got to make this happen. Yeah. And so.
It was strength for you.
Yes. Yes.
Strength.
Yes.
Let me ask you something about practicing. Do you have a routine? Obviously, you do a lot of practicing. Do you have a routine of one particular thing, another scheme of practicing? What do you do?
So, well, what I used to do is different from what I do now. So what I used to do, it was like very regimented. I would have a practice journal back when I was in college, and even when I first moved to New York and after. But I would write down, like, design my whole day, and then write down, okay, 7 to 8 a.m. long tones, 8 to 9 a.m. go to class, 9, and I would map out my entire day and then check it off, check off what I had completed. It was rare that I got to everything, but it would give me a systematic approach as to what I hit and what my big picture looks like for myself at the end of the month. Like what transcription I wanted to learn and if I hit it. It would keep me focused.
Yes, yeah.
And so, but I practice, I usually start with long tones, scales, patterns, tunes, classical repertoire that I was working on, and then playing, just like playing, like dealing with transcribing and playing. But now it's changed because my schedule is constantly shifting. Yeah. And it's funny, I was talking with Warren Wolf about this yesterday, just about because I hadn't touched my horn God, this is embarrassing. I haven't touched my horn for about a week because I went back home.
You don't sound like it. You don't sound like it.
It was rough today.
You don't sound like it. You sound.
Oh, thank you, but so now, and I don't do that regularly, but I'm realizing now I'm really trying to be more in, my practice is being more in the moment as to what I'm hearing and being able to get to that more easily than it being prescribed in my brain. So that it's, when I'm on the stage, I'm able to get to this. And the way that I practice that is I've really been listening and just trying to play what I hear.
Yeah.
Now, there's certain ideas that I might take, or like I was listening to some Sonny Rollins on that Alfie record.
Yeah.
Woo!
Great
And
stuff.
I was so excited, but there's certain things, little ideas that I might take.
Dolphy.
Oh, Eric Dolphy?
Eric Dolphy. Anything you interested?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That alto. Yes. To me, he's complete liberation.
Yeah.
Like, it's systematic, but it's liberated.
I hear it in your playing.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Ooh.
I hear
Thank
it. And I'm not putting this last because it's the least important, but the Beyonce band. Tell us a little bit about that band.
That's okay. So the band and the experience, it was extraordinary on every single level. It was a lot, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity. I'm prefacing it with this big macro thing, but I'm thankful for the opportunity because it gave me another insight on that other world and how there's actually a way to bridge this gap between the R&B pop world and the jazz world.
Yeah.
It could be synonymous. And I think there's some artists who are trying to do that, like Esperanza. We've talked about this a lot. Who's a good friend of mine, and like Robert Glasper is trying to bring certain elements. But one thing about that, or a couple things about that gig that I've learned is that aside from her, being a businesswoman and speaking to her team, she always functioned out of a very clear vision for herself as to what she wanted the show to look like. And even when it was unclear, she was honest with that, but she had a team of people who she trusted around her to help build.
Right.
But if there was something that she wanted to happen, she was going to make it happen, and she wouldn't accept no for an answer. And so in the midst of that, I also realized that how she put her set together, and her set was it was a production, so it was pretty much the same thing every single night.
Right.
Because everything was put to track.
Yes, sure.
And there was engagement with the audience, talking with the audience. There's a nice balance between presentation, musicianship, lights. Everything is like the full package. And what I learned from that and applying that to like my shows is that now I usually have a theme that resonates throughout the whole show, and also my albums.
Okay.
And my most recent album, Diamond Cut, is
I heard some of that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
No, sounded great.
But that particular theme is talking about etching further into your greatness, your diamondness, and looking at the process of how a diamond evolves, and how you have to, you're upon inception within the earth, you know that you're a diamond, and it's this black piece of coal, but you know that you're a diamond, and then you have to endure extreme amount of pressure and temperature to rise to the earth's surface. And then the term actually, diamond cut, pertains to not the size or the shape, but it pertains to how much light is reflected throughout the diamond. And the more I grasped onto that concept, this narrative in my life, because it had been 6 years since my last album, I realized how much I was feeling like I had been a diamond, of like going through an extreme amount of pressure and temperature, trying to rise to the top, and then sometimes having to go back underneath and rising to the top. But the position that I'm in now is being a performer and then also teaching. I'm able to give back and be a light to students, to people, based off of the light that has been poured into me from people such as yourself and my parents and all of my mentors. So it was a thematic theme, but back to Beyonce, I realized that the theme and something like a narrative that you're able to interweave with the show.
Yeah.
Even with the set list, like making sure that you have a nice balanced set list. You have like a variation of different styles. You have transitions. All of these things I think about in my shows, and I definitely got from performing with Beyonce.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for...
Thank you, Art. Thank you.
Now, nobody asked me